Headlines this hour: perpetrators of a shooting incident in which 17 people were killed in a village in Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape are still at large. SADTU has issued a call for unity following the announcement of its newly elected leadership team. And Iran mourns the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says it's a historic turning. Welcome to the week ahead. We are live with you from our SABC News studios in Johannesburg for the next 2 hours. Good afternoon, I'm Gustav Freiling, and if you would like to participate, please give us a call to share your comment or ask a question. Our number here in the studio is 011 714 0680, 0681 or 0682. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has sent his condolences to the family of the 17 people who were brutally murdered in Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape. Mchunu says that his department has full faith and confidence in the team that has been deployed to crack the case and find the criminals. The Police Minister has urged communities to work closely with police in sharing information and providing tip-offs to create safer communities.
Commissioner Masimula has acted, and quite quickly, sending teams of forensic investigators and other investigators on specialized basis. They've started doing the work there, and are hoping that we will find some clues in terms of who did these heinous crimes. We'll spare no moment to bring them to justice.
Teachers Union SADTU has called for unity following the announcement of its new leadership team. Magope Maphila has been re-elected president for another 5 years and Mabutu Kwele as deputy president. Other key positions include General Secretary, filled by Mogoena Maluleke, and Kosana Dolopi as Deputy General Secretary. The announcement was made at the 10th National Congress in Boksburg on the East Rand. The gathering, which brought together thousands of delegates, concluded yesterday following 4 days of discussions.
SADTU President Magope Maphila has emphasized the need for effective membership service in all workplaces as part of the revitalization of trade unionism in the education sector. He says the goal is to grow the organization.
Key among others would be to make sure that we grow SADTU as an organization of teachers. You are aware that we are the biggest, but we still want to grow more than that. We represent education workers in general, not just teachers per se. So the intention is to grow the organization and become strong, because the more members you have, the more voice you have, and the more voice you have, the more you are listened to.
The conference comes as the education sector grapples with several challenges, including the partial signing of the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, which has left out key clauses necessary for its effective implementation. Maphila says the continued misuse of the school governing body powers was affecting learners.
In the form of school policies that excluded black children in particular. You would find that there is an overflow, especially in Gauteng, and overcrowding in black schools, and yet nearby Model C schools, your work schools, they are government schools, but kids can't go there because of racism, exclusion in the form of language. So we're saying, no, if there are learners of other languages, government must provide language teachers at those schools so that they mingle.
General Secretary Mogoena Maluleke says the need to implement the outstanding clauses in the Bella Act is an urgent matter.
The Congress has indicated that clause 4 and 5 must be implemented, as a matter of urgency, because the majority of the people attending the Congress basically being teachers, but they're also in the management in different forms. Either they're principal or deputy principals, or they are liaison officers in the form of secretary of SGBs. So basically, they have indicated that these particular two clauses are very fundamental in transforming education, and therefore they will proceed to implement that and not wait for the 3 months.
The union wants to promote reading and safety at schools. It's also launched a global campaign titled Go Public Fund Education. It's aimed at addressing funding issues faced by the education sector, which continues to struggle with securing investments, and this threatens the jobs of teachers. SABC News, Johannesburg.
US President Joe Biden has described the killing of the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah by Israel as a measure of justice for its victims, including Americans, as well as Israelis and Lebanese civilians. Biden reiterated US support for Israel's right to defend itself, but he said Washington will keep working to de-escalate the conflict.
Hezbollah confirmed on Saturday that its leader Hassan Nasrallah had been killed. His death marks a devastating blow to the Lebanese militant group as it reels from an escalating campaign of Israeli attacks, and to Iran, given the major role Nasrallah played in the Tehran-backed regional axis of resistance. It will also fuel fears the region could be sucked into a wider war. Nasrallah led Hezbollah for 32 years. In his decades in charge, the Lebanese group grew into a regional force, projecting Iran's influence across the Middle East. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, called on Muslims on Saturday to stand by the people of Lebanon and Hezbollah in confronting, quote, the wicked regime of Israel.
In the heart of the Dakh in Beirut, Hezbollah constructed...
The Israeli military said earlier Nasrallah was eliminated in a targeted strike on Friday on the group's underground headquarters beneath a residential building in Dahir, the Hezbollah-controlled southern suburbs of Beirut. It said he was killed along with another top Hezbollah commander, Ali Karaki, and other commanders. The bombing shook Beirut. A security source in Lebanon said the quick succession of massive blasts left a crater at least 65 feet deep. The Palestinian militant group Hamas said Nasrallah's killing would only strengthen its resistance, referring to its fight against Israeli forces in Gaza. Inside on southern Lebanon, this man says, "We are all Nasrallah." But many Israelis celebrated. Applause greeting the announcement by loudspeaker on the beach in the southern city of Eilat. Israel followed up on Friday's attack with a new wave of airstrikes on Beirut's southern suburbs and other areas of Lebanon on Saturday. It's unclear how many have died in the latest wave of attacks on Lebanon, but its health ministry said Israeli airstrikes had killed over 700 people in the past week.
Now, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has lamented the lack of implementation of UN resolutions as it pertains to the creation of an independent Palestinian state, coexisting in peace and security with Israel. Lavrov was speaking in the UN General Assembly in New York.
We call upon all of those that are thinking about the future of their peoples and countries to be very wary of any new escapades by those who invented these rules. We are particularly concerned by the now almost commonplace practice of political killing. The killing of Palestinian civilians with American weapons must immediately be ended. It is important to ensure the delivery of humanitarian aid to the enclave, the reconstruction of infrastructure, and most importantly, it is important to guarantee the realization of the legitimate right of the Palestinians to self-determination and to allow them, not in words, but in deeds, as they say, on the ground, to create a contiguous and viable state within the 1967 borders with its capital in East Jerusalem. Another glaring example of terrorist methods as a means of achieving political aims is the inhumane attack on Lebanon that transformed civilian technology into a lethal weapon. There must be an immediate investigation into this crime, but already we cannot remain silent in the face of the many publications in the media, including in Europe and here in the United States, that indicate to varying degrees the involvement and at the very least awareness of Washington when it comes to the preparation of that terrorist attack. And we understand that the Americans always deny everything, and they do everything they can to hush up any facts that come to light.
Welcome back. Now let's have a look at stories that made headlines in the Sunday newspapers this morning. And joining us to talk about this is Mzwandile Kati, editor of Caxton Local Media. Good afternoon and thank you so much for being with us.
Good afternoon, Gustav. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. We're going to go through some of our newspapers here. We have 4 newspapers. Sunday Times is the first one, as you'll see on the screen there. And the main story on the front page of the Sunday Times today, it's this rather human story of this lady from Cape Town who was kidnapped in the Eastern Cape on the Wild Coast, south of Port St. John's, saved by captors' I'm Alive bungle because the bungling criminals included their phone number, so she was freed again.
Yes. So this it's not the first kidnapping story that we've had in recent times in South Africa. I think there is a rise in this type of crime recently. We've seen a video as well on social media this weekend or the past week where a businessman in Johannesburg survived an attempted hijacking. So I'm not sure what is fueling this type of crimes, but it's something that has been happening, or maybe it can be linked, or it's part of the extortions that have been happening as well. I don't know, but it needs law enforcement officials to have a look into it and see how they can try and curb it before it get out of hand.
Yes. Some of the other stories on the front page of the Sunday Times, of course, about the UN General Assembly that was in New York this past week, and the president was there. SA to push for African veto at top UN body, of course, and the pictures in all the papers of the rugby yesterday in Bombela. But I want to move on to City Press because that is quite a big story and an interesting angle they have here. Obviously, they do these investigations on Paul Mashatile, City Press and News 24. Mashatile crew's bank accounts closed over questionable transactions is the headline there on the front page of City Press. A top South African bank questions how 85 million rand from Qatar flowed in and out of an account owned by the Deputy President's close associates. What is this story about?
So this is another interesting story, considering the fact that the Deputy President, Mr. Paul Mashatile, is the Deputy President, and if his associates are involved in such transactions or questionable transactions, even though there hasn't been any evidence of crimes or anything. So they're just investigating it or trying to look into where the money comes from and why is it in and out in those bank accounts? Is there like a proper explanation in terms of what is the money for, even though it's not linked to the Deputy President himself directly, but due to the fact that the people involved in those companies are his associates. So they are looking into it to say, is there conflicts of interest? Is there any crimes committed in terms of money laundering, international transactions and all those things? So at this moment, it doesn't say anything about the Deputy President specifically or per se to say he has been involved in such transactions or illegal activities, financial activities. But it's just maybe, I think it's a precautionary measure, if I may put it that way, to say, let's look into this. These monies are coming out of from a foreign country to this country. There's these transactions, big sums of money. So let's look into it, because remember, we are still dealing with the Pala issue where there were transactions from international people, and those transactions which were not really accounted for according to size and all those things. So I think they're trying to look into that to say, let's maybe freeze these accounts, investigate, but it doesn't mean that the Deputy President has done anything wrong or there's evidence of him doing anything wrong.
Yes, at this stage, and I see
yes.
they have a quote there saying that were there any conflicts of interest, declarations made by this company's directors in relation to the funds flowing from Qatar. I suppose they will have to follow the money and see where it leads them through all these deals.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I think that is why they decided to close the account or freeze the account to say, let's follow the man. Where does it come from? Why was it deposited? Why, like the actual flow of the money from where it originates and where it ended.
Okay, let's move on to the next newspaper we have here today, and that's the Sunday Tribune, of course, KwaZulu-Natal. We saw this last weekend, the issue with the snow and the people not heeding the weather warnings, and then they were stuck in the snow on the N3 highway between the Van Renen Pass and the Tugela Toll Plaza there in KZN, stuck in the snow. And now it is basically, the weather is back, more snow forecast for KZN.
Okay, maybe I think this time people will listen to these warnings, because the thing is, last time people didn't take it serious because we've never had so much snow in this country. But also, if you remember a few years ago, we had an incident on the N3 where people were stranded and the road was closed because of the bad weather. So I think also on the side of government, national or provincial, I don't know, there's some sort of lack of measures when it comes to being prepared for such things, because maybe they think we don't usually get so much snow in this country. But hopefully from last week, because they saw what happened last week, maybe more measures have been put in place, even for the future, not just for this weekend, but in future as well, to say, what if we have more snow like we did last weekend? So how can we deal with it?
Exactly, yes. We're not used to that kind of snow in this country, and the cars are not, they don't have the special tires and everything like that, like they have in the countries where that usually happens. So we were a bit ill-prepared for that weather event. Moving on to the other paper now, Sunday World, and this front page story here, Mbalula lobbies Simelane Tirizana. That is the Justice Minister, and that is connected to the VBS Bank as well.
Yes, so I don't think it's actually about Mbalula personally. I think there's a lot of pressure now against the Minister of Justice, because remember, after appearing in Parliament, and also we had news of her appearing in front of the disciplinary committee in the ANC, in that committee in the ANC as well, to explain herself, because even though she didn't get the money directly from VBS, she got a loan from that company that was sort of like a middleman or linked to the VBS bank. So questions have been asked again about conflicts of interest, because remember, the municipality had deposited money into VBS, and then she got a loan from that company that was linked to VBS as well. So it leaves many questions to say, was that money deposited and then so that she can get that loan, or was that loan some sort of a reward or a kickback or anything like that? So it's those type of questions, and it's not just pressure on her as alone. I think it's also pressure on the ANC as a whole, because these scandals tend to dent the image. I mean, we are under the government of national unity now because the ANC didn't do well in the elections, and maybe for them to try and redeem themselves, then maybe hence they are saying, no, step aside and deal with this thing, even though there hasn't been a criminal case laid against her, because remember, we had that step aside rule and all those things in the ANC to say, if you are facing charges, maybe step aside and deal with those. She hasn't, at this moment, I don't think there's a case opened against her, but maybe they're just saying, for the good of the organization and for yourself, for your reputation and the reputation of the organization, maybe step aside, deal with this thing and sort it out and then come back. I don't know.
Okay, thank you so much. That's the interesting stories in today's Sunday newspapers. And we were joined here this afternoon by Mzwandile Kati, the editor of Caxton Local Media. This is the week ahead on the SABC News Channel. We'll see you right after this. Well, Welcome back. Right, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has sent his condolences to the family of the 17 people who were brutally murdered in Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape. Mchunu says that his department has full faith and confidence in the team that has been deployed to crack the case and find the criminals. The Police Minister has urged communities to work closely with police in sharing information and in providing tip-offs to create safer communities. Now, a manhunt is still underway for the perpetrators of the mass shooting in Ngobozana village. Our SABC News reporter, Nomzwanele Ngoma, joins us live now to update us on the latest developments. Good afternoon. Can you just tell us what's the latest information that you have for us there this afternoon?
Greetings to you and to the viewers at home. At the moment, there are no developments. There hasn't been any communication from the police. We try to get an update, but there's nothing new. It's still the same information that there's an investigation that is still underway. No one has been arrested. There are no leads from the comments that we got from the OR Tambo District Commissioner yesterday. But we did receive some news that since you remember that there are 17 people that were killed yesterday, and one of those people was rushed into an 18th person was taken to hospital and was in a critical condition. But we did receive some news that are not yet confirmed by the police because we haven't been able to get a hold of them, that the person that was taken to hospital has died. But at the moment, we are still waiting for the communication. We are still trying to contact the police in the province with no luck at the moment. And another thing is that the office of the Premier might visit the family, but they are still going to confirm the visit and is expected to be tomorrow, but we're still waiting for a confirmation. So at the moment, it's still the same. And when we left, you remember that some of the relatives that were there were saying they want to take important documents, important stuff that they think they might need, especially documents that they will need for the burial, because they don't trust that it's safe. They don't trust that there won't be maybe people. Those people won't come back to do more damage in those households, because you remember that one of the households there, all of their family members were murdered. There's no one left. And even the family member that we were talking to even mentioned that that home is going to be closed. So at the moment, that's the only information that we have. But we are still hoping to hear from the police and for them to confirm whether the person is still alive or has died. Because what we heard from our sources is that the person died.
Yes, so that could be now, it could be 18 then. So take us back to yesterday. What was the mood like in that area yesterday when you left the scene? What were you hearing from the members of the local community there?
When we left, it was just after forensic, after an identification process was concluded. And it was when the community members were then allowed to go inside those houses that were affected. And it was just a very sad moment. And since we were also talking to some community members, they also mentioned that as much as these killings are common in that area of Ngobozana, especially not just Ngobozana, in fact, in Lusikisiki, they did mention that the killing of 17 family members has just raised another fear, because now they won't be able to sleep at their homes. They are not feeling safe, especially because they don't know the reason behind these killings. So they were saying that what is making them more scared is that no people are being arrested. And they also mentioned that 2 months ago, a woman was shot and killed. No arrest was made. As the family was preparing for a ceremony, it was a ceremony that followed after a person or 2 members of that family were killed. So in that incident as well, no one was arrested. And when we also spoke to another family member, just checking if they do hope do they have hope on the police, do they think someone is going to get arrested for this? They did mention that because of what they've seen happening around, because even the previous incident that they faced, no one was arrested. They do not think that even on this one, there will be arrests, because it seems like they're saying that the police are not doing enough for them.
Okay, thank you so much for your comprehensive reporting there from Tata, where you are right now. And I suppose, just to confirm what you said, that you don't have any more information from police at this stage.
Yes, there's no new information at the moment. There hasn't been any communication. Even the 18th person we just heard from a source who that is very close to the family. We've been trying to get a hold of the police. We haven't received any response at the moment, but as soon as we get something, we'll give another update.
Thank you so much. SABC News reporter Nomzwanele Mngoma joining us live from Tata in the Eastern Cape this afternoon. This is The Week Ahead, and we'll see you right after this. Welcome back. Now, South African motorists will get more fuel price relief in October. The latest data from the Central Energy Fund shows a more than R1 per litre over-recovery for both petrol and diesel. And this would be a massive R4.60 cut in petrol prices since October 2023. Now, to speak more on what is driving the cut in fuel prices and what this means for consumers, we are joined now in studio by the Chief Economist at Antsiswa Transaction Advisory, that's Mielani Mkabela. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being with us here in studio today.
Good afternoon, and all the viewers of SABC.
There we go. And now we're going to get into all these fuel prices. 2024 has been a remarkably good year for the fuel prices, of course, with this year-on-year reduction since October 2023, massive decline in 12 months. What is behind this big decline?
I think for the current time, we find that the global oil prices have declined, but at the same time, we are having a very good rand that has inspired local or domestic investors. The strength of the rand has improved, and when you look on the decline in global oil prices linked with the strength of the rand, it just gives us a very good position in terms of the buying power that each and every motorist or every South African must have to purchase petrol. But at the same time, you look on the increase in terms of the production of oil. So since there are multiple investors that have committed to put their investment or to allocate investment in the production of oil, that as well assist in the high production of oil. And immediately when there's a high production of oil, there will be a high supply of oil. Then the price of oil, instead of it to be higher, it is expected to go down because there is enough in the market to be used.
So the strength of the rand really helping us now, and that's been the last couple of months that it's really strengthened.
Yeah, the rand has been doing well, or its firmness. Looking at whether it could be the Great British Pound, or you look on the dollar and other currencies, it is an inspirational firmness, looking at emerging market currencies as well. And that really adds a lot of value. And I think South Africans as well, they are starting to see that when decisions are taken in this way, and how does it communicate, how each and every decision communicates with economic indicators, and mainly the indicators that has been affecting our business and individual consumers, that are in the financial services or monetary policy indicators.
Okay. So in October 2023, petrol 95 petrol prices were at a crazy high price, 25 rand and 68 cents per litre back then a year ago, while diesel was sitting at 25 rand and 2 cents. You talked about the supply of oil. Can that be attributed to a lack of demand for oil? at that point?
So you find that the challenges that has been happening around 2017 and 2018, there has been a cut in production of oil. I think it's a story that a lot of people might not really have attended to, but that cut in the production of oil, when we were hit by COVID-19, already there was a reduction in the production. And then when COVID-19 hit the global community, and you find that like production is expected again to go down more. And when there is less oil globally, it will make oil prices to go high because the demand of oil will continue to be higher regardless. And then looking at the expansion of China, like you find that the consumption of, like oil from Asian markets, China, like the African markets. So when the demand for it is higher and then there is less in the market, then the prices are expected to be higher. And those are some of the causes. But at the same time, we had supply chain bottlenecks where the movements of like goods and services couldn't be transmitted in all ends of the world. And all those elements or factors have caused the oil price to be higher. And then now we are really coming down in the recovery for that.
So obviously the production of oil is controlled by the cartel, by OPEC. And they then have to respond to these global market moves.
Yeah, like OPEC, it's not in its grouping generally agreeing that all the time oil production must be reduced. But like you find that like there are influential key stakeholders that will really need that to happen. But in those like whether it could be agreements and disagreements or like whatever resolution that happen, independent countries that are part of OPEC, they are producing oil from their own countries, and then they have control as well into that. So like you'll find socialist more countries could really look at producing oil in large number, but like more capitalist nations will look at producing oil lower so that they always make the price of oil to be higher. So all those like probably it could be as well the world views of countries or the beliefs in terms of how things must be, depends with each and every country. And I think South Africa not being an oil producing country, we are suffering from that. But as well, we are having a good resources. We have a very good lineup of mineral resources that are assisting us to balance around those elements.
Yeah. So we have to take the price of oil because we need the oil. We have to import it. What is a bleak outlook in China's economy? Does that influence us here in South Africa at all?
Yeah, like you will get like an interesting news that the Chinese government has looked at dropping the interest rate. That is one, to boost economic growth. And then they have looked as well at increasing the fiscal that looks at like I'll say infrastructure or industrial development and manufacturing, so that it is shaped as well in the amount or the value of money that has to procure oil. And all that, the China growth has a very huge impact in the price of oil. But if things are not done well, you will find that like when they import a lot of oil and there is less that is left, if there is already less production in the market, then the prices will be higher. But almost like the Chinese leaders and the OPEC nations, they are working around that as China has prospects of a growth and increasing its fiscal for industrial development.
Let's come back to South Africa and to our rand and to the strength of the rand. What can you attribute that to? Is that because of the government of national unity?
I think there is enough hope that South Africa is going to the right direction from investor point of view. And it's not really an issue of And, you know, a lot of people are saying now there are whites in government, but like when you can indicate it's whites have been there, you know, because Rob Davis, the DTIC minister, he's white. So like whites has been there. So South Africa hasn't been a racial nation. Looking at the appointment of government ministers post 1994, but like what is happening is the trust that comes in from a combination of or you know multiple political parties that are leading government, because then that will limit a lot of things that investors are afraid of. But at the same time, when there is a combination of or there is collaboration of multiple parties, then that will result in good governance and accountability. So if good governance increases and accountability increases, then investors get to have hope in putting more funds to that country.
And also something very practical for the economy is the end of load shedding, it seems.
Yeah, like I think the Minister of Electricity has done well in terms of identifying what is the actual problem and critically get to solve that. And then I think we can see that for almost more than 4 months now, we have been really having a good economy that is as well giving a trust to global investors or global institutional investors. Yeah.
When we look at the recovery in fuel prices, is it only the motorists who will benefit, or will that cascade down to other consumers?
As oil prices go down globally, so like you find that transportation prices will automatically go down, or logistics prices will automatically go down. So which means the procurement all over the world will really have like low like operating expenses, and that will make retail prices to be lower. So like the end consumer is going to as well benefit from lower FMCG products, but at the same time, like people that are taking public transport, they will as well experience lower prices from their bodies that are controlling such cartels. You know, like you are Santago, that are running that big national business. So they will probably work on reducing prices in maybe in townships, you know, going to CBDs, you know, or like moving from township to you know, to workplace. So prices will be lower as well around that. And then we as well look at probably Santago to probably speak with its members to lower prices for our communities, because more people are using public transport. And then Santago happens to be a bigger body in that. They are expected to lower prices for all their clients or customers.
So let's get your crystal ball out. Fuel prices, of course, it drives inflation. Can you predict what the Reserve Bank will do with the interest rate, perhaps, from this? Like
what we'll have to look at is inflation is expected to probably be below the target midpoint, and then what probably it will happen is, if all the indicators that are in the basket that will be evaluated makes inflation to still remain within you know, a reasonable or a target like a midpoint, then the Reserve Bank might hold repo rate, or they can still as well look at cut like the repo rate, which in all sense we really need to look at multiple things. Crisis is not yet off our shoulders. You know, like you look at the war, like that probably might start because of Israel's you know, bad leadership that they are attending to, whether it will be at Lebanon or Palestine. So such can really spark a global crisis. And then if global crisis start again, then we'll expect supply chain bottlenecks. And then at the same time, then it will make the prices that want them to be contained to be higher. And these are some of the things that the leaders that are leading now, these 10 years, we have really experienced bad leaders. And if probably the global community can then attend into electing good leaders so that we can benefit from better prices, better lifestyle, and people have to have movements without fear. And all those things impact our economies. And we hope UN and the global community could take good decisions and make sure that Israel stop whatever they are doing so that we can have a better living in our communities.
So anything can happen in this world that we live in. Thank you so much for joining us here today in studio to talk about the fuel prices and the larger economy. Chief Economist at Ansiswa Transaction Advisory, Mielani Kabela. Right, SABC radio stations that have amassed millions of followers and listeners continue to pride themselves in promoting all the official languages protected by the South African Constitution. The SABC's language policy plays a crucial part in ensuring the equitable treatment of all languages. In Limpopo, 3 radio stations, Pala Pala FM, Mungana Lunene FM and Tobela FM, promote the heritage of each of the languages that they broadcast in.
Erisabra nomen matebula mingisolo mngana FM ko Mandela ifamba xipampa
le botse le no la sedibeng re boa boe le boile botoko pa re boile botoko wa tsenga hore ha wo hona motho a rena boratse go boya.
The language of Xitsonga delivered on the radio medium to nearly 1.5 million listeners. Audiences are spoiled with a variety of on-air talent. Another flagship Limpopo station, Tobela FM, reaches 2.8 million people across the country. The Chivenda language station, Pala Pala FM, prides itself on reaching its dedicated listeners. The reach of the station is vast as it connects to 1.1 million listeners. Presenters of the 3 stations understand the importance of disseminating accurate information through the use of their mother tongue.
It's very important to understand our heritage and culture because it actually forms a very pivotal role in our lives to where we understand that, people who are most famous, especially musicians, you mentioned the likes of King Munada, he sings in his own mother tongue and that makes him a very, very, powerful artist. You talk about the likes of Dr. Thomas Chauke who sings his Tsonga.
Broadcasting with the mother tongue is very much important because our listeners, most of them, they speak Sepedi. And then we have the others, those who can understand Sepedi very well since you are in Limpopo province. So when we talk to them with this mother tongue, our Sepedi, they understand the information that we give them.
My experience is that showcasing and broadcasting in your home language has a far better reach as listeners are able to connect with you.
The SABC is committed to treating all 12 official languages equitably on radio and television. When it comes to sourcing content in the 3 languages mostly spoken in Limpopo, presenters and producers encounter some challenging moments.
Young people these days are exposed to a lot and social media. They have TikToks, they have X, they have Facebook, and all these internet issues that they check on. So it's very difficult for them to speak proper Chivenda. So when they call on air, sometimes they will use Venda and English.
We encounter problems with content sourcing, because most Bavenda people feel like there are certain things that are not supposed to be shared with other people. I can reference to rape in particular, where you find people calling in telling you that my father raped me or my uncle raped me, and they're willing to go on air after hearing maybe someone experiencing or sharing their experience in that manner. But after 2-3 days, they'll be like, no, I've changed my mind.
As a Xitsonga radio station, it means that you have to translate. You might get content which is already in English, but you need to translate. In translation, you should make sure that your translation doesn't affect the content, and also making sure that your language remains the way it is with regard to the use of idioms, the use of personification.
The SABC's Limpopo region has ensured continued language preservation by strengthening relations with experts in various fields. As languages evolve and new terms are coined, mostly in digital publications and social media, the SABC's language policy remains firmly rooted in its commitment to the Constitution and a range of legislative and regulatory frameworks.
In different universities, we do have the researchers. We do have the professors who are actually working with different communities regarding the languages, so they preserve the language. So it's easy for us as producers to actually talk to them, to engage them, so that we inform our listeners regarding our heritage, our language, our culture.
We have already migrated to new online platforms, social media platforms, that whatever we put together in terms of news gathering and current affairs, as well as news bulletins, translate into the new social media platforms to enhance accessibility.
The listeners who consume information that gets beamed from each of the station's frequencies all have personal stories as to why they listen. One of the common reasons that audiences are drawn to their favorite radio mediums is culture and language.
I'm listening to Thobela FM because I'm from Limpopo and I've grown up in Limpopo, so I listen to Thobela FM so that I can understand what basically they are talking about.
It teaches us more about our languages and how to express ourselves in our own languages, especially now during Heritage Month.
The language is simple for me to understand what is important and what is not, especially current affairs.
The public broadcasters' radio stations are obliged to reflect the linguistic and cultural diversity and the nation's multilingual nature. SABC News, Polokwane.
Now, in reigniting the spirit of Ubuntu, the newly launched Danko tipping app goes an extra mile to reward hardworking people earning an honest living. From car guards, waiters and hotel staff, tips provide a tangible means for these individuals to significantly boost their often modest wages. Danko app developer Michael Spinks says tipping is a crucial source of income for many people in the service industry.
The Danko app launched in June with the aim to revolutionize the tipping landscape in South Africa. Danko app developer Michael Spinks says a lot of people encountered severe financial strain, which forced them to tighten their belts and cut down on dining out, which then resulted in a drop in the tipping culture and a significant income reduction for service workers. Spinks says he was inspired by the ordinary South African whose livelihood were affected by the pandemic. He says the COVID-19 pandemic introduced South Africans to the digital economy.
The people in COVID experienced, the change in behavior with the move to the digital economy. And I felt compassionate about the car guards and the petrol attendants and other people who lived off of the tips that were given in everyday transactions. And when this cash dried up in society as people moved across to the digital economy, I felt this desire or passion to try and find a solution for that, which I felt should be a digital solution considering the behavior change.
Spinks says the Danko app has already made an impact in the lives of those in the service sector. He says the app goes beyond tipping, as 50% of its profits uplifts underprivileged communities through bursaries.
I think people are innately generous. They do want to make a difference in society. I think South Africans are all about that. And this is just a tool to make that happen. The great part about Danko is that 50% of the net profits from transactions get donated to the Inala Hope Foundation, which then invests in these communities, the tip givers or tip receivers communities, in the way of scholarships and bursaries and the like to uplift those communities.
Johannes Rangata, who recently started using the app, says some people have been a bit reluctant to this new way of tipping. He says some people are afraid to use the app because they are not used to it. But when they ask, I do explain to them and show them how it's used. It becomes better when I use it. When the papers are selling well, some people are able to at least tip me. To start supplementing your income through the app, all you need is your cell phone number. Nomtsigelelo Mtshabela, SABC News, Johannesburg.
This is The Week Ahead. Thank you for being with us. We will continue at the top of the hour. Headlines this hour. The Police Ministry has applauded the Eastern Cape Police on their swift response to crime. Water-related challenges in the town of Alice in the Eastern Cape have received a major intervention following the official launch of a 130 million rand water and wastewater treatment expansion project. And Iran has announced 5 days of mourning after an Israeli airstrike in Lebanon killed Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah and a senior commander in its Revolutionary Guard. Welcome back to The Week Ahead here on the SABC News Channel. We are live with you from our Johannesburg studios. I am Gustav Reding and you are still welcome to participate in our conversations. Give us a call on our studio number. It's 011 714 0680, 0681 or 0682. Now, the Police Ministry has applauded the Eastern Cape Police on their swift response to crime, and this during a visit to KwaNobuhle in Kariga, aimed at listening to the community's challenges and enhancing safety and security in this area.
Outlining a comprehensive strategy to address crime and improve community safety, the minister emphasized his trust in the plan to tackle crime in the metro and those he has entrusted to carry the task out.
My view for the minister to be here in KwaNobuhle, it is a good thing, and the minister also emphasized on the areas that they are going to improve on. The police will be visible in our area, and also what I would like to happen is that we should have the neighborhood watch. The neighborhood watch will also help each area. If you can have a neighborhood watch, also the street areas, street committee and area committees. So whenever someone comes into the area from another province, then we'll be able to identify that person, why he left the area, and so that we can know as a committee in that area that, okay, this person left because of ABCD. That will also help us if that person has not been involved in a crime where he comes from as well. And also I feel that the mobilization from the community was not enough, as most people did not hear about the program that the minister came here for.
In Rosedale Clinic, they are not safe. Daily from Monday to Friday, there are shootings from various gangs that seek to find their fellow gangsters or their fellow crime buddies. Just previous month, an elderly lady was shot because she was coming out from the clinic, not knowing that the thugs were looking for his grandchild. He got shot and she died in front of the gate of the clinic, Rosedale Clinic. Nurses are resigning at the Rosedale Clinic.
In the last month, a total of 53,525 suspects have been apprehended for various crimes. a relief to community members who feel the pinch of escalated crime statistics.
We can say to the whole country that the men and women in blue are hard. They are not just at work, they are hard at work. Some of them spend long hours without sleeping because of the nature of work that they have to do all over the Republic of South Africa. And we are proud of that. We are supportive of that. And we support them both as individuals and as the organization. So that at the end we bring crime down. Whether we do that gradually or we do it in whatever manner, crime has to be brought down, and we'll do that.
Meanwhile, a manhunt has been launched to apprehend the suspects connected to the mass murder of 17 people in Lusikisiki.
Now, Commissioner Masimula has acted, and quite quickly, sending teams of forensic investigators and other investigators on specialized basis. They've started doing the work there, and are hoping that we will find some clues in terms of who did these heinous crimes. We'll spare no moment to bring them to justice. At this stage,
at least 20 extortionists have been shot and killed during confrontation with the men and women in blue in the last month. For SABC News, I am Ndomozuko Palindulo in Kariga.
Relief is on the way for residents of Alice in the Eastern Cape who have faced constant water-related challenges in recent months. This follows the official launch of a R130 million water treatment and UFH wastewater treatment expansion project. The aim is to accommodate the growing population of the university town. It comes after numerous complaints of water scarcity that have sometimes led to protests.
This project is set to benefit both the University of Fort Hare and the Alice community. Before the upgrade, this treatment plant produced 75 litres per second. Now it will produce the much needed 140 litres.
What these two projects do is to stabilize the university, stabilize the operations, stabilize teaching and learning, and make sure that what people came here to do, they do precisely that. Students can learn uninterruptedly, staff can do their work uninterruptedly. That's the one thing that's very, very important. So no more protests about water, no more sending of staff home prematurely at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's that. But secondly, and this is the bigger point to make here, that we basically want to move out of that historically disadvantaged institution kind of mode. We now want to be there. We want to be the one town and one university where you can drink directly from the tap.
While the intervention is widely welcomed, communities are concerned about the issue of water leaks in the area. The Department of Water and Sanitation says this is being attended to.
I could notice that one or two community members were not pleased about the stormwater that is running into their household. And you could see that there is a rectification work that must be done around the issues of stormwater management because they are actually at the bottom of a cliff. That's one aspect that they need to look at. And then while there are certain rectification issues around censoring management in terms of volume levels, and the mayor has committed to do. But communities themselves have a biggest responsibility. They must safeguard their infrastructure. They can't be throwing garbage there.
Residents have also been warned about illegal water connections and vandalism to infrastructure. Abongile Yankees, SABC News, Alice in the Eastern Cape.
The South African Sugar Association says the sugar industry needs to explore diversification to avoid permanent closure after facing critical turning points multiple times. The industry, largely concentrated in the rural areas of KwaZulu-Natal and southern Mpumalanga, has experienced a decline in annual sugar production by nearly 25% in the past 15 years. However, local sales stabilized in the past 3 years, rising from 1.25 million to 1.55 million tons. SABC economics reporter Nosipo Hadebe has the details.
According to the South African Sugar Association, the health promotions levy dealt a significant blow to the industry, particularly because the beverage sector is its largest customer. The impact of the sugar tax on beverage sales resulted in substantial job losses for both the beverages and sugarcane industry and resulted in the closure of 2 of the over dozen sugar mills.
Any changes to the HPL must be evidence-based. So at the moment, the presidency is conducting a socio-economic impact assessment study of the HPL. I mentioned earlier there was a NEDLAC study. So the one being undertaken by the presidency is looking at, I think it's 2022 onwards. So there's a socio-economic impact assessment study, or SAEAS, and then the Department of Health is also doing a dietary intake study to find out exactly what South Africans are eating, because you can't penalize one item in a food basket when you don't know where the source of calories are in the diet.
The association says the implementation of the first phase of the Sugar Master Plan 2030 successfully prevented the industry's collapse, but progressing to phase 2 is essential for the industry's long-term survival.
But what stands out is we're wanting to move from a sugar industry to a sugar cane based industry that produces sugar as well as other products. But we also want to obviously contribute to the country's economic and social development and create prosperity, not only for ourselves, but all the players in the value chain, society and the environment.
The improvement in the industry under phase 1 has created an opportunity for the industry to consider diversification options, including bioethanol and co-generated electricity. However, government support is needed to make product diversification a reality.
Our studies found that we can produce up to 750 million litres of ethanol. So that's the amount that can be produced by the sugar industry. And this is quite a large amount because South Africa's petrol consumption is around 9 billion litres. So we can contribute up to 8% of this when we're blending with petrol.
CEO of SASA, Trix Trickham, has warned that the industry cannot afford another shock.
Farmers are going to be in trouble. They will not be able to survive because the cost of production of sugarcane will be much higher than what they receive. And therefore, they will get out of sugarcane. And once they're out of sugarcane, it's very difficult to put other crops on that land.
The industry estimates that it will take a minimum of 5 years before the proposed resolutions begin to have an impact. Nosipho Khatebe, SABC News, Cape Town.
News from abroad now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has described the killing of the Hezbollah leader as a historic turning point. 64-year-old Hassan Nasrallah was killed in an Israeli strike on Lebanon on Friday. Hezbollah confirmed his killing yesterday. Now, the Hezbollah leader is by far the most powerful target to be killed by Israel in weeks of intensified fighting. The Lebanese Health Ministry said 33 people were killed and 195 wounded in Israeli strikes. The Israeli military said it carried out a precise airstrike while Hezbollah leadership were meeting at their headquarters south of Beirut. Protests took place in multiple countries, mourning the death of the leader. Around 1 million Lebanese have been displaced by Israeli attacks. Now, meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader declared 5 days of public mourning for the Hezbollah leader. Welcome back. Nobel Prize laureate in literature Professor Abdul Razak Gurna has applauded South Africa for taking the case of Gaza to the International Court of Justice. He delivered the 22nd Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture and focused on realizing our shared humanity.
We have to keep, to some extent, a certain kind of balance, as it were, about this. That things, some of the issues that face us today can be solved with, perhaps with more rational engagement with what is the problem. Let's say, for example, with the problem with refugees in Europe, going to Europe, and some issues are promoted by self-interest, by nations, And I'm thinking here of Palestine, Israel, Russia, and Ukraine. These are issues that are prompted by national hubris or national self-interest, which you and I can do nothing about. We just have to observe and speak about the injustices that we observe. So it depends what we're talking about. We can do things about the environment. It's not, I don't think, too late. I'm not a scientist, but I don't think it's too late. And this kind of growing self-awareness about the dangers, no doubt will produce more caution on the way how we live in the world. So some issues can be resolved by, I guess, more discipline of a certain kind, one or another, but some issues are not in our hands.
Right, at least 6 people were killed and 10 injured by bomb explosions in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. It's not clear who had carried out the attacks, although the Al-Shabaab group frequently orchestrates bombings and gun attacks in Mogadishu and elsewhere in the Horn of Africa. Now, the blast involved a bomb-rigged car that was parked on a road near the National Theatre, about 1 kilometer away from the president's office. Now, in a separate incident, a bomb planted in a livestock market in Jowhar City killed 1 person and injured 3 other civilians. Welcome back. Now, the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund hosts a pivotal pre-summit engagement, bringing together 50 children from various provinces to address pressing issues like violence, inadequate education, hunger and online safety risks, with alarming statistics showing over 4 million children living below the poverty line and 2.1 million going hungry each year. This event aims to empower children to articulate their concerns and aspirations. But how will this initiative drive meaningful change? Joining me now this afternoon is Refilwe Mokoena, the Child Safety and Protection Program Manager at the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. Refilwe, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and hello to all your viewers.
Can you tell us more about your pre-summit engagement and its objectives?
Yes, absolutely. So the pre-summit that we're holding here in South Africa and have been doing since yesterday is actually a lead up to the broader Africa Children's Summit. We did the first one last year in Nairobi, Kenya, and the objective really is to give children a platform to engage on all the issues that concern them on the continent and in South Africa in particular. So the aim is that at the end of this summit, the children will create an outcome statement, which will be presented to policymakers, NGOs like us, in order for us to work with them to take those issues forward.
So how does this initiative align then with the fund's mission and goals?
Absolutely. So I think, as we all know, Ndata Madiba was very passionate about children, and he actually said that you can tell a society's character by the way that it treats its children. So at the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, we're very much focused on protecting children, which is a program that I run, as well as on child participation, because we think that nothing should be created for children without their voice. So this program is really about child participation as well as child protection as regards education.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the specific issues that will be discussed during this engagement now?
Absolutely. So over the past 2 days, we've been focusing on education because that's actually the agenda that the children last year gave us to engage with. And within that, we've selected 6 sub-themes that relate to artificial intelligence, to health, to violence against children and how that affects their ability to learn in school, as well as climate change and equity. So really the children have been the ones facilitating, especially the breakout sessions, where they've been able to think within the context of their own communities, their own schools, what are the issues that they face on a daily basis, according to those sub-themes and what they would like to see done about it.
How did you select the 50 participating children now, and which provinces will they represent?
So the children actually were selected through our networks of NGO partners. We're working here with the South African Human Rights Commission, the South Africa International Children's Summit. We've also partnered with Nedbank. And those are some of the partners who gave us children as a referral. And then we also generally put out a registration. And we are lucky to have representation from across the country. All 9 provinces have been represented in the conference.
And what specific outcomes do you hope to achieve from this event, this pre-event?
So as I mentioned before, the children are the ones who have crafted outcome statements along the lines of all of those 6 sub-themes. So we've taken it upon ourselves as the fund, along with our other partners, to take those forward to the policymakers, the Department of Basic Education, Social Development, who we work with, to say these are the issues that most affect children when it comes to education and violence. And we've actually promised the children that if they don't hear any progress from us by the end of this year, they should follow up with us directly on the outcome statements and the progress of their implementation.
And how do you hope that the insights gathered from this event will actually inform policy changes or recommendations?
We're hoping that one of the issues actually that has come up a lot and which we know that we struggle with as a country is inequality. So simple things like the children have said they would like a curriculum that's fit for purpose. And there's been a big focus on AI, on the use of ChatGPT, social media. So even simple things. How can we make sure that all of our schools have access to technology, basic computer infrastructure, so that all children can be moved into the 4th revolution? Those are some of the things that we're hoping to address concretely.
And what role does collaboration play in addressing these systemic issues that affect children?
No, collaboration is critical. No organization, no individual can do anything alone. And that's why even in the hosting of this event, in the conceptualization of the agenda, it's been a collaborative effort between ourselves and some of the partners that I mentioned, as well as, of course, the children themselves who have their own planning that feeds into it. We also rely on the community, we rely on parents, educators. We can't address systemic issues like poverty, like inequality as a single institution. Collaboration is critical.
Okay, you mentioned them earlier, but how will the fund actually work with the stakeholders, such as these government departments, social development, as well as the Human Rights Commission?
So what we'll do is that we will unpack the outcome statements that have come out of this event. And of course, some will be more relevant to some entities than others, and basically engage them to say, this is what children have said that they need in terms of improving violence against children, for example, anti-violence programs in their schools. Are there ways that we can enhance what's already being done? Are there ways that we can bring more, for example, social workers, mental health professionals into schools? So I think it will be about meeting each partner where they are in terms of their mandate. So looking at engaging on policy change with government and looking at our NGO partners, how we could actually implement our projects together in the parts of the country where we have overlap.
Talking about what is currently being done, what measures are now in place to ensure children's voices are heard and valued?
So I think, as we all know, and that's something that's actually come up in our deliberations, most of our schools do have student councils or other platforms where children can engage and input into decision-making in their schools. In addition, as the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, we partner with many community-based NGOs who themselves run programs directly in schools, be it within the curriculum or after school. And that also is a way that children are able to engage and participate in these key issues that have come up.
Refilwe, thank you so much for talking to us, and all the best with your pre-summit there. Refilwe Mokoena is the Child Safety and Protection Program Manager at the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome back. Now, the bail hearing against pig farmer Zachariah Olivier and farm workers Rudolf de Wet and William Musora is set to continue this coming week. But this time, however, the bail application will be heard at the Polokwane Regional Court. The three are accused of the murders of Maria Makgatu and Kudza Ndlovu. Their remains were allegedly fed to pigs at a farm in Sebayeng. Our SABC News reporter Katlego Nyoni joins us this afternoon with the latest. Good afternoon and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Christoph, and good afternoon to the viewers as well.
Give us a quick background to this case to remind our viewers what it is about and what happened.
So what we understand, Christoph, is that at the heart of this particular issue was poverty. The two deceased women, 45-year-old Maria Makgatu as well as Zimbabwean national Kudza Ndlovu, visited this farm. They've been accused rather of trespassing at the time. So the incident which occurred on the back at that particular pig farm was quite alarming because allegedly the trio, that is pig farmer Zachariah Olivier, Rudolf de Wet, as well as Zimbabwean national William Musora, allegedly attacked the two women, shot and killed them at that particular farm. This is back in August, before the week of the 18th of August. That is when this incident took place at that particular farm. Now, after the shooting incident, one person managed to survive. That is the survivor, Mabuto Nube, who escaped, and the other two women were left at the farm, and then that's when they died. They passed away. Their remains, from what reports are saying, is that their remains were disposed of in a pigsty and were left there until the family started filing a missing persons report. That's when police were able to trace their remains to this particular pig farm in Sebayeng.
It's a very gruesome story. Why has this matter now moved from the one court to the other?
So that's actually a very interesting question. The prosecution, through the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, applied for a certificate, essentially arguing for the relocation of this particular court case. The bail application is still ongoing. Some of the reasons which were cited was for the continuation of a bail application, but at a higher court, because certain issues emerged when this court case started. We saw the defense making it clear in court that they would like to have access to particular documentation that the trio signed after their arrest. Now, the defense the counsel for the defense, that is Johannes Fenter as well as Joey Meyer, argued that they would like to have access to the docket as well as some of the paperwork that was signed by, in particular, pig farmer. Now, the presiding officer at the Mangweng Magistrates Court, Ashad Chaya, only allowed for access of the docket for defense for accused number one, that is the pig farmer, 60-year-old Zachariah Olivier. When it comes to the other two accused, that is Musora as well as Rudolf de Wet, the court denied their legal counsel access to those particular documents. Now, the state is intending to submit a leave for application. However, the defense is accusing the state of delaying tactics, that they have not yet finalized this particular leave of appeal application. So on the one hand, we are seeing this turn out in court where the defense is saying that they would like to have this particular documents. However, the court only granted access to the defense for accused number one, that is Zachariah Olivier. Christoph?
Okay, so it's different for the different suspects then. But what should we now expect from this week's proceedings there in Polokwane?
Well, going to the Polokwane Regional Court, that will be the first time that this particular bail application takes place at a higher court. We are likely going to see the defense continuing with the same type of arguments, that they would like to have access to this particular documents. It will obviously be under a different presiding officer as it has moved from the Mangweng Magistrates Court. Now, this will be on Wednesday. We also expect that the state will announce how far it is with its intention to appeal the decision earlier taken on by the Mangweng Magistrates Court to grant the legal counsel representing Zachariah Olivier access to this particular documents. Now, the defense for all three states that their clients signed these documents while they were under duress, under pressure from the police. Another startling revelation was made when the matter sat on the 10th of October. We had the defense for accused number 2, Rudolph Defert, citing in court that his client was allegedly assaulted by the police. There has not been any evidence so far presented in court. It's still the early stages, essentially, of the bail application, but the trio still remains in custody.
Thank you so much for your detailed reporting and for covering the story for us. We'll hear your reports on the court proceedings during the coming week on SABC News. That's our reporter Katlego Njoni. This is The Week Ahead here on the SABC News channel. We will see you right after this. Welcome back. Now, the Johannesburg Expo Centre is abuzz with energy as fans flock to experience one of the world's biggest gaming events. Fans from all over the country are gathering for an event that is sure to enthrall them once more as it celebrates everything geeky, from video games and comic books to films and television shows. And Axe, South Africa's leading male fragrance and Comic-Con collaborator, will be having activations there featuring live performances as well as virtual reality experiences. Now, joining us today are two industry experts who have made this year's event possible. Tamron Taylor is Unilever's Marketing Director, and they join us live now. Good afternoon, Tamron.
Hey, great to be here.
And we also have Calvin van den Berg. He's the Marketing Manager of Comic-Con. Good afternoon to you as well.
Hello, thanks so much for having us on.
Calvin, let me start with you. What makes this year's Comic-Con Africa unique compared to the previous editions?
Look, I think what's so exciting about the Comic-Con coming back is we're pretty familiar with this venue now. We've got quite a refined show. We've gone bigger in certain areas, and I think the quality of the stands that are coming through are really, really impressive. We've got a couple brands promoting some upcoming streaming titles and streaming platforms. We have our new friends at Axe really showing up in a really great way. The festival element to the show is still very much alive. It's definitely, I would say, one of the highest quality shows that we've put together.
Calvin, how has this event grown? And what new experiences were fans able to enjoy now?
Yeah, I'm glad that you are. So Comic-Con started out in 2018, and we were expecting something like 17,000 fans, and we met that. That grew to 27,000 fans, and then after COVID, we came back with 70,000 fans. And we are at capacity for the venue. We can't go any higher than that. So we're seeing that kind of number return back and enjoy the experience. But one thing that is a big addition to this year's show is we have reintroduced KidsCon, which is an entire area on the show floor dedicated to kids activities and a whole lot of family fun. I think that it's grown in that way. Our outdoor area has more seating. It's on growing. It's very much a living show, and based off all the fan feedback, we take that super seriously, and we put that back into the show for them.
So, Calvin, what role would you say does Comic-Con Africa play in promoting pop culture and fandom here in South Africa?
Wow, that's a really cool question that I'm so glad you asked it. What an exciting one to dive into. So I think that Comic-Con really brings the world to Africa in a way that is completely unavailable anywhere else. We have comic book artists that have worked on Marvel and DC, some that have worked for Star Wars, some that have drawn for Indiana Jones. It really brings the world to Africa. And in terms of the export that we get from that is there's a lot of comic book artists that are very inspired. There's a lot of connections that are made on the ground, both in the comic space and the gaming space, and that eventually goes and sees big international projects come to life. So we're pretty much the middleman between Africa and the world when it comes to pop culture and gaming, and we're so proud to hold that position.
And what marketing strategies did you use to sell out all the tickets? Was it all about the Incredible Hulk?
Lou Ferrigno was a phenomenal guy. He was really cool to meet. We've had some really great talent come through. As you mentioned, we had Lou Ferrigno, who was the original Hulk from 1977. We had Joe Manganiello, who was in True Blood, as well as Magic Mike. And then we had Brenton Thwaite join us as well from DC's Titans, as well as The Giver. So yeah, definitely the celebs help pull a crowd. I think that our fans are exceptionally loyal when it comes to reattending the event. They absolutely love it. They're here all the time. time, and delivering on that promise of quality that we bring forward as a festival has really, really helped us. On top of that, we have our partnerships, we have our friends, we lean into some marketing elements as well, and lots of really fun digital campaigns. But I think the fans' loyalty is really, really what keeps us going.
And how will Comic-Con Africa continue to grow and evolve in the coming years? What is your hope for the future, Calvin?
Yeah, so we've seen pop culture become mainstream culture. Even in the coolest of coolest people are walking around in an oversized T-shirt, but it has Pikachu on it. So pop culture is definitely becoming mainstream culture, and we're so excited to be welcoming more fans. If you look at how the Marvel universe has grown, before 2008's Iron Man, nobody really cared about who Thanos was, but then everybody was crying at the end of Endgame. So it's definitely become part of mainstream culture, and we want to make this community that is so welcoming, accessible to everyone.
Tamron, let's get to you and Axe, of course, that you represent. What inspired Axe now to partner with Comic-Con Africa for this year's event?
Well, I mean, Comic-Con, like Calvin said, it's for the people, and so is Axe, and it's for people who really love theatrics, they love spectacle, they love experience. So as Axe being our first time here, we thought we really need to take it to the next level and up our game. And it was an amazing opportunity for us to create something absolutely unique. We've got 4 different fragrance worlds inspired by the different Axe variants that we have. Everything from a molten lava, dark temptation world that's inspired by red peppercorns, amber, and the scent of chocolate. And each single world that we have also has a signature cocktail link to it. So, it's just been so fun to play with those kind of things and give people an amazing experience. What we've also got is, I think we've got one of only 2 fully immersive domes that people can actually come and experience our fragrances in virtual reality as well. So, yeah, it's just been an opportunity for us to do something absolutely amazing to bring our brand to life for the people.
And can fans also participate in some social media campaigns?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, each of the virtual worlds that you can visit, they're amazing photo opportunities. There's hidden Black Panthers in some of them. There's the world of Ice Chill, which is another amazing photo op. And there's even a programmed wormhole for Axe Apollo, which is another absolutely amazing photo opportunity. And all people have to do is follow axe.sa, tag us, and then they get free cocktails and chances to win prizes the whole time that we're here. Every couple of minutes, the DJ J-Spoo is giving away prizes, so people are just loving it.
So are there any upcoming events or activations that people can look forward to?
Well, today we've just had a performance by Robot Boy, and Robot Dog joined him today, and he'll be back at our stand again a bit later. So for fans of Robot Boy, it's an opportunity to meet our amazing brand ambassador. And then, yeah, if you follow our Axe account, you'll be able to see where this experience might be popping up next.
Okay, and the 2 of you, did you dress up as anything?
I dressed up as a stressed out organizer.
So exactly like you look now.
As a Ghostbuster.
Ghostbuster. That's quite fitting.
My son did, though. He came as Slimer. And he actually won 3rd prize in the cosplay competition.
Awesome.
Wow, that is fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon, the 2 of you. That was Tamron Taylor. She's Unilever's Marketing Director. And then Calvin Vandenberg is the Comic-Con Marketing Manager. And this event comes to an end later today. You're watching The Week Ahead here on the SABC News Channel. We'll see you right after this. Welcome back. Now, the South African Weather Service has forecast a drop in temperatures in many parts of the country from tomorrow until Tuesday. It is also forecast 60% chance of rain and the possibility of snow, of course, once again in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, last week, hundreds of road users were trapped in snow on the N3 highway between Van Rieden's Pass and between the KwaZulu-Natal and the Free State, of course. For more on this, we are joined this afternoon by our SABC News meteorologist, Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here to talk to us about the weather. And the cold is on its way again. So let's start with the warnings. Of course, that we have an orange level 5 warning and a yellow level 4 warning around the Cape South Coast. What can those residents expect there?
Good afternoon. And yes, thank you. I think The main thing is that the temperatures are going to drop today, if overnight into tomorrow. These warnings are expected over the southwestern parts of the country. The temperatures start dropping from the southwestern interior, the southern areas of the Northern Cape into the northern parts of the Western Cape province. Already the province is having some cold temperatures with the snow expected over the high-lying areas. We have an orange level disruptive snow that's expected here, stretching all over to the escarpments over tomorrow. That's when we're seeing the Eastern Cape province experiencing most of the snow that's expected. To the extreme southwestern parts of KZN. KZN will be just mainly over southern areas of Mooi River into the borders of Lesotho, but most of the snow that we're seeing is over the escarpments of the Eastern Cape province for tomorrow. But for tonight into tomorrow, we're still expecting those warnings mainly over here. I mean, the orange level 5, meaning the significance of the impact is quite high, with the high likelihood of it happening. So it's significant snow that's expected to be disruptive over the high-lying areas of the Western Cape province into the areas of the Eastern Cape, especially the high-lying grounds. We also have damaging winds and waves along the south coast, stretching, as well as some disruptive rain that's expected in KwaZulu-Natal. So for KwaZulu-Natal, it's mainly disruptive rain along the east coast for tomorrow. However, the snow is mainly along the Drakensberg, the Eastern Cape, into the high-lying areas of the Western Cape province for tomorrow.
So there are also level 2 warnings around Cape Town and so on. Is that less intense, or should people also still heed that?
So in explaining the warning, so a level 2, it's a yellow level, it's a category of minor impacts that are expected, but with the high likelihood of it happening. Now, once you get to the orange, it's a significant impact of a change of saying whatever that we send out could be severe thunderstorms, could be disruptive rain, snow, anything that is off weather, and we extend it to be orange, it gets to be a significant impact. Now, once it gets to be severe, the color changes to red, and we also have some orange that are within severe, which would be orange level 8, like what was sent out the past weekend.
So all of the snow that we're seeing here in the middle of the country, is that what's going to bring us the cold?
Well, I like the question. So it's because it's cold that you have snow, not because there's snow we have cold. It's like I always say, you think of what you put in the fridge. It's quite cold. So that's why the fridge is cold. That's why you have ice. And the fridge is not cold because there's ice. No, there's ice because the fridge is cold. So that's what's happening. The cold conditions, the drop in temperatures, freezing levels over the central and the southwestern parts, stretching to the escarpments of the Eastern Cape. That's what's going to cause the snow, because it's quite cold over these areas and the regions are expected to be cold. In the northeastern parts for the week that's to come, we're having a high pressure that's just reaching in the east, which will expect it to bring about of clouds and drop some temperatures, but to remain cool, not cold. However, the cold will just stretch to the escarpments of Mpumalanga from tomorrow into the 1st.
I see they described this as an intense cold front. How long would it last for?
Well, this was actually part of a high pressure system and an upper air. It was not really a cold front that resulted. Cold front made landfall yesterday over the southwestern areas, but the main cold is definitely because of the high that's coming in and the upper trough. But the cold, yes, you're right, the cold front has just moved past into the eastern areas. It's quite cold, but it has already moved the country as we speak right now. It's actually exiting the eastern areas. For tomorrow, then we're going to see that high. So what happens is that the cold front behind it has cold air. Now, when the high pressure system starts to reach behind that cold front, it pushes all the cold over the southern areas with an upper trough, then that results in help of much more of the cold and resulting over the southern areas. So the cold that's still expected, it's overnight into today, well, overnight into tomorrow, and then the 30th into the 1st, and then a rest into the week. We're seeing just cool conditions over the northeastern parts, covering Gauteng, Mpumalanga, KwaZulu-Natal, and parts of the Free State province.
And it's quite interesting, even though there's this cold front and there's cold in the Cape provinces, up there in the north, that seems quite hot over there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you spoke about that. The northeastern areas, Mpumalanga and as well as Limpopo, I mean, the maximums today are expected to reach about 40 in Skukuza, 40 in Musina. It's quite hot and dry, hence you'd see the red there, which might result in conditions conducive to veld fires in the northern parts, which might be resulting in some runaway fires due to some blowing of winds.
Almost as though you live in a different country when you're up there.
We get that question a lot, that what's happening in the north that's not happening in the south, but it's the weather.
And that's South Africa for you. It's
South
a very
Africa
diverse
for you.
country.
Diversity.
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon, SABC News meteorologist Nolo Tobela. And that is our show for today. That's the week ahead here on the SABC News channel. Thank you for joining us on your Sunday afternoon. The news will continue at the top of the hour. For myself and the team, take care.